breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warm and friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Rob Donaldson. He does such great work over at Underdog Fantasy and over on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson with the Rob's Best Bets Show. We're going to chat it up with him about what we're all seeing in a very, very wild American League landscape where it feels like nobody wants the league right now, what to make out of so many of those teams, the hot and cold teams out there. We're also going to be chatting with him about the slate that we've got for Tuesday, a lot of interesting spots, and perhaps some plus money underdogs that might be able to lend some value. In the final segment, I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters they mean does not matter. So, as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. Then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Why did not get in any Twitter/X questions? Boy, did we have a fun day of baseball Monday. Let's take a look back at it. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Boston Red Sox have now lost 3 straight games as in a low-scoring game, the Red Sox fall by a count of 2-1 to the Blue Jays. For the Blue Jays, Jameis Taillon goes out there for 4 shutout innings. From there, Simeon Woods Richardson in long relief, 1 run allowed in 3 innings. Tyler Rogers, Louis Varland squirrels 8th and 9th innings, and Sonny Gray, not bad here, 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, was taken deep. Home run number 2 of the season, and I believe the career of young Mr. Charles McAdoo, and then you were able to get a pair of scoreless innings out of Giovanni Morin, but for the Red Sox, 0 of 7 with men in scoring position, so nothing doing there. A lot doing for the Arizona Diamondbacks. 9-0, they were able to take down the Colorado Rockies. Gabriel Hughes, worst start of his career, 7 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Zach Ognos from there, 3 shutout innings, and Nick Frezzo comes in for an inning. He gives up 2 runs as Nolan Arenado gets his 18th home run season off of Hughes, and Michael Soroka, first start back, very solid 4 1/3 innings scoreless, and newly acquired Zach Littell comes up big. He was able to give 4 2/3 innings scoreless in long relief. For the Atlanta Braves, they fall to the New York Mets 8-5. The final are now averaging like 5.3 runs per game ever since Juan Soto's been out with injury. Christian Scott was not great, Scott. He gives up 4 runs over the course of 4 innings. But hey, from there, you were able to have Nate Lavender and Kodai Senga both give you a scoreless inning. Dan Duarte, 2 shutout innings, and Jonathan Pintaro, he comes in for an inning. He gives up a run, but at the very least, he wasn't Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder looked elderly. 7 runs allowed in 5 innings, including a pair of bombs as Francisco Lindor, 11th home run season. Brett Beatty, a grand slam, his 8th home run in the season. And for the Braves, they strand 10 men on base in this one. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they fall in San Diego by a count of 3-2 to the Padres. Logan Anderson, 3 runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Ty France, more like Win France, 17th home run season. Jackson Merrill, his 19th, and after a shaky first start with the Padres, Casey Mize, very solid here. 2 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, was taken deep by Christian Yelich, his 8th home run in the campaign. From there, Yuki Matsui, Adri Motohone, and Mason Miller. They're all able to turn scoreless innings, and you did have 1 2/3 innings scoreless out of the bullpen for the Brewers from Lyon Richardson, the former Cincinnati Red. So he was on to give you a little bit of relief there, and being able to get a lot of relief, the Walker Texas Rangers. Not a lot of scoring here. It was 1-1 through the 9th inning, but the Angels have now scored 2.5 runs per game since the All-Star break, and for the Rangers, they get a 4-1 win in this one as Reed Demers, he did his part. He gives up 1 run over the course of 6 innings. Jose Fermin, Taylor Cicado, they combined for a scoreless inning. You had Ben Joyce and Sammy Natera both give you a scoreless inning, and then from there, you had Luke Murphy give up 3 runs, 2 of which were earned in the 10th inning. You needed a pair of outs out of the bullpen squirrels to be able to clean up that inning from Blake Wyman, and for the Rangers, Mackenzie Gore does not get gored. He does give up a home run to Mike Trout, 20th home run of the season. That came in the first inning, and that would be the lone form of offense that this team would have, as from there you had Tyler Alexander give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen squirrels, Chase Silseth, pair of outs squirrels, Robbie Alstrom, he was able to get 4 outs scoreless, and then Peyton Gray scoreless inning, and then you had a scoreless 10th inning out of Jacob Latz. For the Athletics, their bullpen ERA since June 1st is now 6.99. They give up an 8th spot in the 8th inning As for the Tampa Bay Rays, 10-6 they are winners in this one as Freddie Peralta, 3 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, and Chris Roycroft from there gives up 3 runs in an inning, and he actually gets a win. Going deep off of Mr. Peralta, it was Zach Aloff getting his 12th home run of the season. Then on the flip side for the Rays, you did have Yandy Diaz get his 16th home run of the season. That comes off of Jacob Lopez, who was solid in this one. 2 runs allowed over the course of 7 innings, and then you had Junior Caminero launch a 3-run shot, 34th home run of the season. That comes off of Seth Johnson. 4 runs allowed out of the bullpen, did not get a single out. Jose Suarez, he gets 1 out of the bullpen, he gives up 4 runs. And then you did have 1 2/3 innings scoreless out of Scott Blewett. He didn't blow it, but the guys in front of it, well, they lived up to his name. The Minnesota Twins, they persevere over the Baltimore Orioles, 9-5 the final. Dean Kramer gets revenge over his old team. Very good start here. 1 run allowed over the course of 7 innings. From there, the bullpen made a little bit of a mess out of things. Taylor Rogers, Travis Adams, they both give up 2 runs apiece in their inning of work. And for Trevor Rogers, just not long for this game. 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, and he does give up a home run, as it was home run number 3 of the campaign for Austin Martin. And then you had home run number 16 a little bit later on from Josh Bell. That one comes off of Grant Wolfram, who has not been great in this bullpen, to say the least. 1 2/3 innings. He gives up 3 runs, all of which were earned. And Uncle Rico Garcia, he gives you no outs out of the bullpen, and he gives up 4 runs, all of which were earned. That's not necessarily what you want. You were able to get a out of the bullpen scoreless out of Josh Walker, and then 2 scoreless innings out of Cam Sanders, but way too little, way too late there. Being able to get a win, how about the Philadelphia Phillies, who are now 32-26 away from them? They take down the St. Louis Cardinals by a count of 5-4. Hunter Dobbins gives up 3 runs, 1 of which was earned over the course of 5 innings. He was hurt by his own throwing error, so that one was legitimately on him. But from there, you did have Luis Castillo give you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Caleb Ferguson, he does not get a single out of the bullpen because he walked 3 guys. He gives up a run, and Gordon Gaseffo, he had to try to hold down the fort, gives up 2 runs over the course of 1 2/3 innings. Justin Brule, he was able to come in, and he bruled for a scoreless inning, but too little too late, as Alan Ronell, he was not great out of the bullpen for the Philadelphia Phillies. 3 runs allowed over the course of 2 2/3 innings, but you know who was pretty solid? Andrew Painter seems to be turning over a little bit of a new leaf. He comes in there and he gives up only 2 runs over the course of 5 1/3 innings, and then Jonathan Bolin, he was rolling and bowling. He was able to give you a scoreless inning. For the Kansas City Royals, they were a massive underdog, and they almost pulled this one off. 6-5. The Dodgers are able to get the win over the Royals, and that's just the 2nd win for the Dodgers since they traded for Tariq Skubal. As in this one for Skubal, he looked very mortal in this game. He gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, including a home run, as he was cranked deep by Jack Caglione. For Caglione, that is home run number 21 of the campaign for him. A little bit later on, Kyle Isbell, he gets his 4th home run of the season. That one comes off of Jack Dreyer. For Dreyer, he comes in there for an inning. He gives up 2 runs, both of which was earned by Alex Vesia, Tanner Scott, and Edwin Diaz. They're all able to turn a scoreless inning. Meanwhile, for Noah Cameron, regression Adam Hardy had given up a 1 run over the course of his last 3 starts, gives up 4 runs in 5 2/3 innings. From there, John Schreiber, and out of the bullpen, he gives up a run. Alex Lang gives up a run in an inning, and Jose Cuas, he was able to come in for a scoreless inning. And then for the Houston Astros, it required extras, but they get the job done against the San Francisco Giants, this by a count of 6-3. The Giants were leading 3-2 going into the top of the 9th inning, but unable to hold on was Dylan Smith, who gives up a run in that 9th inning as Blake Tidwell. Good start here. 1 run allowed over the course of 5 2/3 innings. JT Brubaker, pair of outs out of the bullpen, he gives up a run. Sam Entages was able to turn a scoreless inning. Keaton Wynn, pair of outs out of the bullpen, scoreless, and then Jason Foley in that 10th inning. 3 runs, 2 of which were earned, as Hayden Wesneski, solid here. 3 runs given up over the course of 7 innings. He does give up a pair of bombs, as you had Drew Gilbert get his 5th home run season, Jung-Ho Lee his 9th, but from there, Stephen O'Curtis scoreless inning, Josh Hader scoreless 9th and 10th innings to be able to get that one to the window. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it has all of a sudden become a very underwhelming season, with the under rate being at 50.9%, 885 unders, 853 overs, and I believe we're up to 35 pushes. Favorites on the money line, they are hitting at 56.3%, 976 and 979, but among those favorites, we have now seen a whopping 246 fail to cover the run line. Last 30 days, it has been especially rough, as 63 of the 198 favorites that have won outright have not covered the run line. 198 and 150 for favorites on the money line, so about 57% in that time span. 192 unders, 152 overs, so 55.8 or so percent to the under in that time span. Meanwhile, if you look at the last 7 days in Major League Baseball, under 8 more around about 51.7%, 46 unders, 43 overs, and along the way. If math serves me correct, we've had, I believe now, 6 pushes and favorites on the money line, 54 and 40 in this time span, with 18 of those favorites failing to cover the run line. That's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming up next, let's chat it up with our good friend Rob Donaldson over at Underdog Fantasy, right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got ourselves Rob Donaldson aboard. He does such great work over at Underdog Fantasy, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. I know that he, much like myself, is dialed into what we're all getting in terms of the college basketball front end. All the very, very interesting hoopla that we're seeing over there. I know that he's dialed in on so many different things right now and getting set for what is going to be a tremendous football season as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at RobDFB altogether. And Rob, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Greg. And, now we're in kind of post-trade deadline world in Major League Baseball. We've already seen some of the new players in action, and ultimately we're starting to kind of see what the bigger picture kind of looks like in Major League Baseball as a whole. So it's a very fun stretch run from now until the playoff time, but we get enough of it that it's going to at least, substantiate us along the way.
Yep, it certainly is going to. And what do you make out of the outlook right now that we've got in the American League? Because right now the top record is the Rays, the hottest team is Boston Red Sox, but this is still just such a hodgepodge. Like if the Yankees can get back Aaron Judge, who says that they can't make a run, but if they don't get back Aaron Judge, who knows what the heck to be able to make out of them. The White Sox are still leading the American League Central, which I'm sure everyone had on their bingo card, and the AL West, well, the Angels are not going to win it, and that's all I can make out of the AL West.
Yeah, what's kind of crazy is, you have the Toronto Blue Jays who have the 4th worst record in the American League, and they're only 3.5 games out of the freaking wild card, Greg. It's where we are right now, where a team that's 7
and they
games
bought freaking Jose Soriano.
Yeah, right. They kind of they weirdly bought Josh Smith. They weirdly bought Jose Soriano. They traded away Kevin Gausman, and I have really no idea what their deadline was because it's not like they really gathered a whole lot more control. Soriano does have that little bit of control, but it almost kind of feels like they just tentatively bought, but in a very weird way. So yeah, honestly, that's the American League in a nutshell. This season, Greg, is you have a lot of bad teams who are still in the mix. And the question becomes, is it even relevant if this team makes a playoff? And honestly, the answer is no. I mean, it's still great to make the playoffs if you're a fan of the team. If you're just trying to build a winning culture to get that playoff experience under your belt, that does pay dividends in my opinion. But in the American League, you have a lot of bad teams who are vying for 3 wild card spots. And somebody has to get them, but none of the teams look like they want to.
Yeah, I mean, man, it is just so interesting. And are you feeling good about any of these American League teams right now? Because the Red Sox certainly have been one of those teams, but they were coming off of back-to-back losses against the Athletics of all teams in their home games. So that's not necessarily great to say the least. And I just take a look up and down the boulevard, and it's rough because you're saying these teams might not be able to make a run, but it's so weak in the American League that you might be able to make a run.
Right. And, we've been trying to make, excuses or at least cases for a lot of these teams in the middle of the American League and being like, hey, well, maybe they can propel forward down the stretch run. And ultimately, right now, as it currently stands, when you're talking about the middle of it, being the Astros, Rangers, Tigers, Twins, Guardians, like those sorts of teams that are technically only a series kind of removed from that last wild card spot. Of those teams, I tend to think that the Astros have kind of the best excuse in the bucket because for part of the season, they were missing Yordan Alvarez and their offense was in the tank. Jeremy Pena was not producing the way that he's producing. Now you have Yordan Alvarez, who might just win the Triple Crown. Jeremy Pena is a run-producing machine. They tentatively bought at the deadline as well, and Dalton Varsho went yard as well in the San Diego Padres game. So it's just one of those things of if you're trying to find a reason why one of these teams is in the middle, maybe unjustifiably so, I would point towards the Astros. I mean, even since July 1st, this is a top 5 offense in all of baseball. So I do think the Astros are going to be the team that emerges out of the AL West. We'll see what happens, but I do feel like the entire AL as a whole is just not very good.
It's not very good. Like, man, it is not very good to say the least. And I want to get your thoughts here because you joined me after the trade deadline and you said, hey, maybe some of these teams that bought, we might want to fade them a little bit. For the Dodgers going into Monday, they had won just one game since Tariq Skubal. They picked up Tariq Skubal. And obviously, I think that that's going to be going northward moving forward. But how do you take a look at the National League right now? Because I still do think that the big bad wolf is the Dodgers. They're still dealing with a bunch of injuries. And we're going to get into this in a second. Blake Snell is going to be coming back on Tuesday, but I do think that that's an interesting race where everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that it would be the Dodgers making the World Series, but they've looked very mortal over the last week plus.
Yeah, and honestly, as we're recording this, we're only 7 days removed from the trade deadline where, the teams who were in contention are buying, right? And the teams who are not were selling, whether tentatively both ways or kind of going full bore. And what if I told you that a team 5.5 games out of the wild card as we sit here on August 10th was a buyer at the trade deadline? That's the Pittsburgh Pirates. So I tend to think that when you're looking at the NL, it's very similar in regards to the AL, where there's a lot of hodgepodge teams around that wild card spot. Dance the San Diego Padres, the Miami Marlins, St. Louis Cardinals, Philadelphia Phillies, D-backs, that all kind of feel like they're very, very similar to one another. It does kind of feel like there's more competency when you're talking about the NL. And when you're talking about some of these teams, notably the Cardinals, the Nationals even, and I would even give it to the Marlins as well. When you talk about the farm system, and that's going to be a big, big factor over the next week here as that sort of service time restriction or open window becomes a really, really viable to bring those guys up from AAA. I think that's going to be the main story about the National League middle is those teams that bring up prospects, and with those prospects actually producing, I think we might be able to see a sneaky team make a wild card spot and present really kind of a disruptor, if you will, when you're talking about the National League picture.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that it's going to be so interesting to take a look at some of these teams moving forward. And I think that we've got ourselves a bunch of spunky teams out there in the league. And I think that this game is so fascinating because I mentioned it. Blake Snell, he's coming off the injury list, and we're getting the Kansas City Royals with Michael Wacha on the bump at like a plus 220, plus 230 number. Totals between 8 and 8.5. I want to get your thoughts here because normal Blake Snell, I'd be willing to back, but I have noticed over the last few years when Blake Snell comes off the injury list, that first start is always a disaster. We have no idea what we're getting there, and sight unseen, I don't know anyone would be able to lay more than minus 250 here on the LA Dodgers.
100%. And also, factoring into that equation, not even just talking about the angle that you mentioned, which I love personally, big name pitcher coming off the IL, fades City, because they are good. They need some time to get acclimated just like anybody else. There's kind of that ramp up period. And whether, you are Max Scherzer in his prime or Blake Snell right now, you can go out there and just get shelled against literally anybody if your stuff isn't sharp at the major league level. And something that we need to factor in here too is the Dodgers. Since the turn into July, Greg, so pretty much, an entire month and some change, the Dodgers are a bottom 8 offense in all of Major League Baseball when you go by WRC plus, OPS, runs scored. That is something that when you're buying into the Dodgers quote unquote brand, you're typically leaning on that ability of them just being able to put up 14 runs on any given night. And that's just not who they are right now. That's why they're 2-8 over their last 10. That's why they've been on several skids over the last month. And so I'm going to be a big buyer in the Royals. Maybe not the full game market because the bullpen is so terrible, but I am going to be a buyer into the Royals in some capacity there tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. That is a Royals bullpen that is royally awful, to say the least. But hey, I do think that we've got some value here, my friend, as we do have our good friend Rob Donaldson, who he does such amazing work over at Underdog Fantasy and the Rob's Best Bet Show. He's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and I think this one is interesting because I think that Shota Imanaga is still doing for a lot of regression in his last 14 starts, giving up 2.3 home runs per 9 innings. But you've got Jake Irvin on the flip side, and that's not great, to say the least, for the Washington Nationals. I'm seeing a total of 9, and I know that overs have been hard to come by post All-Star break. The Nationals are a little bit banged up, but this is an over that is very much calling my name.
I'm right there with you, and I'm right there with you on both fronts of the over in this ball game, but also just kind of the negative regression that we should be able to expect from Shota Imanaga, because I think Shota is very good for kind of a middle rotation arm if you're talking about him in terms of how he ideally should slot into a rotation. But the underlying numbers, when you're talking about hard hit percentages and just kind of the fielding independent numbers, I mean, you're looking at a pitcher that definitely on the surface projects not even in close to kind of that 3 ERA range, or just a pitcher that can go out there and just shove, 5 or 6 innings strong every single time out, the way that he has been for the most part this season. So, yeah, with a team like the Nationals who do hit lefties extremely well, even after dealing a guy like a Curtis Mead, I do tend to think that this is going to be a very, very surplus-heavy offensive day for the Nationals, and the Cubs honestly have been dealing as well offensively, notably because PCA is just otherworldly right now, but I love a first 5 under in this game, and that's where my money's going to be going.
Yep, that is going to be a fun one to say the least, and I think this one is interesting. For the Pirates, they are 3-12 in Paul Skeens' last 15 starts. They're a slim favorite here against the Marlins. Eury Perez has been always so much better throughout his career at home rather than away from home. Marlins bullpen, not trustworthy. Pirates bullpen, not trustworthy. I want to get your thoughts here because I'm seeing a total of 7, and I think you could get a great start out of both Skeens and Perez, but still be very live for that over because I do not trust those two bullpens.
Yeah, and actually, I've already dumped a fair amount of money into the first 5 over 3.5 because it just shows you that Paul Skeens, Eury Perez, name value, it's commanding that price to be that low. And right now, Paul Skeens is Aaron Nola. I mean, you look back to the start of July 1st, Greg, Paul Skeens has an ERA that's around 7. And if you go back to June 1st, he has an ERA that's north of 5. This is not right now a pitcher who is living up to the Paul Skeens name brand. In those 7 starts since July 1st, the Pirates as a team are 3-4, and he's actually a reason why they have been losing so many games. When you're talking about the Pirates offense, and right now there's a lot of woes going on with the Pirates offense, notably, it's only coming against left-handed pitching. And so when you're talking about Eury Perez, I do think that he's going to do at least somewhat well in this game, but I do think he's not going to escape unscathed because both of these offenses, honestly, Greg, since July 1st, kind of using that as my barometer in this episode, both of these offenses against righties project in the top 10 in terms of OPS since July 1st. So I think both Paul Skeens and Eury Perez could go up there and give up 3 earned or even 4 earned on their own. And right now, through the first 5 innings, we're looking at a total of 3.5. So that's actually going to be one of my favorite plays of the day here on Tuesday.
Yep, I'm liking that one as well. And then here is a gift that has been giving for me, fading not just the LA Angels, but Ryan Johnson in particular. Like, how a team is giving Ryan Johnson the ball once every 5 days baffles the human mind. Over a 70 ERA, actually didn't have the world's worst start last time out, but going against a Rangers team that is going to be throwing out their Chase Bradford, his second start since the beginning of the 2025 season. Right now, the Rangers are about a -140, -145 favorite and a total of 9.5. Want to get your thoughts here because Ryan Johnson is so bad, but the Angels, I'm not even kidding when I say this, going into Monday, their first 20 games since the All-Star break, averaging 2.55 runs per game. So on that 9.5 total, something's got to give.
You're talking about Cody Bradford. We've seen some really high moments with him in Major League Baseball, but he's coming off of an injury. This is going to be his first appearance of the season the second appearance of the season. And when you're talking about just in general, the Angels can get on the scoreboard. It is against left-handed pitching. That's kind of their bread and butter right now, is teeing off against lefties. And on the other side, you had mentioned with Ryan Johnson, a poor guy, it just kind of feels like the Angels always rush these prospects up. And because they don't have a deep system, the terrible performances that they're putting up there are actually better than the alternative. And for this game in particular, even though the Rangers bullpen can be an ultimate nullifier for runs, just look at those first 5 innings. I say you take that over again. I really do think that both pitchers have a chance to really get shelled in this matchup.
Yep, I'm thinking so as well. And is there anything else that you're taking a look at on this Tuesday? Because we've got all 30 teams in action, and we've got some fun ones, in my opinion.
I kind of look at this Red Sox Blue Jays series, and there's no hotter team in Major League Baseball than the Red Sox, but they did just drop a series against the A's. We'll see how they do here on Monday against the Jays in Game 1. But Dylan Cease, and I hate buying in on a pitcher who is rolling as hot as Dylan Cease. I mean, since the start of June even, he's been probably the best pitcher in baseball when you talk about the under the hood analytics, when you talk about the surface level numbers, I mean, an ERA sub 1 since that date. And there's nothing to suggest that even against a red hot Red Sox lineup, that a pitcher at this magnitude is going to go out there and struggle. And so when I'm looking at this game, I'm looking at, again, kind of those first 5 frames. I love that the Red Sox have been red hot. I think they're going to be a good team long-term this season. But in this vacuum of a game going up against the best pitcher in baseball right now, I'm going to take the Blue Jays laying that half run through the first 5 frames. And if it's a 0-0 ball game after 5 innings, I'll take my lumps. But hopefully we can put some runs on the board if we're the Jays.
Yep, absolutely. I think that we are going to be able to get a few out there. And Dylan Cease, man, he has been absolutely tremendous this year. And another guy coming off of injury, Patrick Sandoval, just his 6th start since the beginning of the 2025 campaign. And the Red Sox, better offense when they're away from home rather than at home. So we've got a lot of fun that is going to be coming up on this Tuesday. Rob, you're doing a great job in terms of breaking it all down, looking at baseball, getting set for some foosball and so much more. So all the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, you know me. I'm a foosball extraordinaire and also big on the football as well. But, for those who want to follow my every single bet that I'm placing every single day of the week, even on the weekends, Twitter/X at RobDFB, and also my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having you on, man.
It is always great to be able to have Rob aboard every single time he joins me. He lends such amazing insights. Did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always a pleasure to be joined by our guy, Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we are going to be going in the Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started. This is 901-902 on the card. It is the Pirates. They walk the plank to the road to face off against the Miami Marlins as Eri Perez is on the bump for the Fish, and you've got Paul Skeens going for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, a favorite of between -115 to -122, -101 to +105, that number on Miami, and total on this game, you're going to be getting it between a 7 to a 7.5. On the 7, over is -115 to -120. The under is between even to -105. On the 7.5, under is -120. Over is even, and I set a total here of a 7.3, and I'm going to take a 7 to the over. Would rather have a 7 over rather than a 7.5 to the under. For Paul Skeens, the team is 3-12 in his last 15 starts. I am going to be willing to back him here because for the Miami Marlins, there's just not a lot of power hitters for the team. Roberto Hernandez is up to 15 home runs. Kyle Stowers has been solid as well, actually 16 for Hernandez, but they trade away Liam Hicks. You do have some great base stealers, Jacob Marcy, Xavier Edwards, Esteury Ruiz, Otto Lopez, all of these 16 stolen bases. As a matter of fact, all of these 18 stolen bases, and in the case of Lopez, hitting above 300, Xavier Edwards about a 350 on base, but Jacob Marcy really doesn't move the line, and for Paul Skeens, I do think there's positivity to him from 1.2 strikeouts, 2.5 walks per 9 innings. While he's got a 3.96 ERA, he does have a 2.91 fielding dependent. Still do have trepidations with this bullpen. I like the fact that they pick up Luke Weaver, but Camilo Duvall has not been anything special whatsoever. And then you have the likes of Dennis Santana spying an ERA well above a 350. They are getting Evan Sisk back off the injury list. He's been arguably their best reliever thus far this season, but can have a lot of mixing and matching. Carmen Molchinski is now back in the starting rotation after he was a long guy in the bullpen. So looking at a little bit more Yohan Ramirez and guys like this. And then on the other end of things, have a Miami Marlins bullpen that just hasn't been the same recently. They've been dealing with a few injuries. We've seen Calvin Fauché post up an ERA well above a 350. it's been an awful season for Pete Fairbanks, and the Pirates are still a top 6 team in terms of run creation with Brandon Lowe getting loud. He's been able to give you 25 home runs. A lot of guys moving the line. Brian Reynolds along with Spencer Horwitz above a 375 on base. Nick Gonzalez is hitting a 300. Jake Magnum, he's hitting a 300. He's got 21 stolen bases. They've been dealing with the injuries to O'Neal Cruz, Connor Griffin. That's been hurting them quite a bit. And Esmeralda Valdez, as expected, starting to regress, but still 14 home runs in 161 at-bats. Now for Erie Perez, throughout his career, he has been significantly better at home rather than away from home. And you look at what Perez has been able to do recently. He has been absolutely superb. Going into his last start, he had given up just 8 total earned runs across his last 8 starts. He did give up a 4 spot last time out against the Atlanta Braves, but still, he's posting up for the season 9.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, 379 fielding dependent, but has been much better since coming off the injury list. And then you do take a look at those career numbers. When he has been on the road, he has no doubt had his struggles. 4.51 ERA on the road. His home runs per 9 rate is well above a 1.6. Meanwhile, at home, more like a 0.85 home runs per 9 innings rate and a 2.75 ERA, but I still do have my trepidations with that bullpen. So I do like the 7 to the over. And for the Pirates, willing to lay up to a minus 123 on the money line. 9-3, 9-4 on the card. It is the Cubs. They are going to be on the road against the Washington Nationals as Shota Imanaga is going to be on the bum for the Cubbies, and it is Mr. Jake Irvin who's going to be going for the Nationals. Nationals do find themselves as an underdog, a plus 140, minus 166 on the Cubs, and total I'm seeing is a 9 over is minus 115, under is minus 105. If you're looking to lay run half with the Cubs right now, find that at even money. I would be looking at the run line as I did set the run line price laying a run and a half at a minus 103, so even money will probably be about the max I'd be willing to go, but I am willing to bet on a slugfest here just because both of these pitchers I do not think are in very good form. I mean, Jake Irvin last year had an ERA above a 5, spent a lot of time on the injury list, and he still has a 5.37 ERA, 1.5 home runs, 3.8 walks per 9 innings, and it's supported by a bullpen that's relatively rough. They do get Brad Lord off the injury list, so that provides a little bit of reinforcements, but Carson Palmquist has well above a 5 ERA. These guys like Passon Schultz, Gus Varland and company, they have been absolutely awful coming out of this bullpen. Clayton Beeter hasn't been too bad, but man, you're really not getting a lot of production there. And for Shota Imanaga, he should be feeling lucky he's got the ERA that he's got right now. For Shota Imanaga, 3.60 ERA, but a higher 4.38 fielding dependent, 1.7 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and in his last 14 starts, so this is not a small sample size. 4.48 ERA, 5.45 fielding dependent, 2.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, and he goes up against a squad here that has been very much able to bang it out with the Washington Nationals. They are currently numero uno in all baseball in terms of run production with just under 5.4 runs per game, and the Cubs are number 2. They're averaging nearly 5.2 runs per contest, so you've got two teams that are really banging it out now. For the Nationals, they're dealing with the injury to James Wood, no doubt about it, that hurts you because he's getting darn near 400 on base, 30-plus home runs, but C.J. Abrams has still been one of the best hitters in all baseball himself, as he's up to 28 home runs, about a 360 on base, and then you've been able to have some production out of someone like a Jacob Young, who's been able to give you a few bombs, 13 stolen bases, and Nasim Nunez. I mean, he doesn't hit for a lot of average, but 40 stolen bases. That's absolutely incredible right there. Dallin Lyles up to 15 home runs as well. So still has some power in this team. You need Andres Shapiro and Dylan Cruz, who've just been disappointments to be able to pick it up a little bit. And then on the flip side for the Chicago Cubs, Pete Armstrong, not sure if he should be leading in terms of the MVP race, in terms of the odds, but I need no doubt about it. Has been incredible. 26 bombs, 388 on base. And then you've got Michael Busch give you a 360 on base. Seiya Suzuki, 19 home runs, 360 on base. And a lot of these guys with low batting averages still have solid on base. It's like you've got Ian Happ, 20 home runs. Well, he only got 216, but a 325 on base. Michael Busch, I mentioned before, his batting average is only about a 248. Alex Bregman, 249 average, but closer to 340 on base. And for the Cubs, they themselves do have some shakiness with this bullpen. They did reinforce it at the trade deadline, but I would argue that they didn't do a ton to be able to help out there. You pick up like a Ryan Zephyrian, Yipty stinking do there. Riley Martin's still on the injury list, but you have had Jacob Webb along with Ryan Rolson be able to give you a sub 250 ERA. Javier Assad is the guy that you can utilize as a little bit more of a long guy now as well, but you're still dealing with the injury to Hobie Milner, so it is a circumstance where I think that you get quite a bit of scoring. Like the over, so my total 9.3. And for the Cubs, even money or better, going to be in on that run line. 9-5, 9-6 on the card. It is the Mets. They're going to be on the road against the Atlanta Braves as we got Noah McLean on the bump for the Mets, and Martin Perez goes for the Atlanta Braves, and the Braves, who find themselves as a favorite here of minus 125 to a minus 135, between plus 108 to a plus 115. That number on the Metropolitans, 8.5 is the total, over and under, any between minus 105 to a minus 115. I am going to be willing to take a shot on the under. I did set my total here at an 8.2, and at the plus 115, I'm in on the Mets. I do think that Nolan McLean is going to be able to keep things, for lack of a better term, relatively clean, because he has been much better when he has been away from home rather than at home, and he does get a lot of swings and misses. 10.7 strikeouts, 3.3 walks per 9 innings, 3.51 ERA, closer to a 3.49 fielding dependent, and look at what he's been able to do this far this season, and his ERA at home is a 4.19. At home, he's given up well over 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Away from home, closer to 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, 2.81 ERA. And for Martin Perez, he's gone out there and he's been very solid. Now, he should be probably doing for some regression on that 3.14 ERA. 4.21 fielding dependent, 7 strikeouts at 3.6 walks per 9 innings, but has very much held down the fort recently with a combined 7 earned runs, 8 runs in total in his last 5 starts. So that has been good, and he is backed up by a bullpen that is currently number 1 in the National Leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got the Dylan Lee, Dylan Dodd, DDA Fuentes, along with Racio Iglesias, all being able to give you a sub 3.25 ERA. And then on the flip side for the Mets, you do have to have some question mark with this bullpen. Now they trade away Brooks Raley, you trade away Oscar Brizabin, Luke Weaver, so Jeffrey Yan is someone that you're looking to. Austin Warren is still on the injury list. Devin Williams is now on the injury list, so I was never really a lover of him. Now, Dan Duarte, I think, is going to be able to give you some solid innings, but still, it is a team that is a little bit gutted with that regard. And when it comes to this Atlanta Braves lineup, Drake Baldwin has been able to pick it up 360 on base. He's been able to give you 20 or so home runs. Ronald Acuna Jr. is starting to look like himself as well. He's back above a 350 on base. Matt Olson, 33 bombs. He has been remarkable. Austin Riley continues to lack, along with someone like Mike Yastrzemski at the bottom of the fold, but now they're getting back Sean Murphy. That should be able to help you out a little bit as well. But again, I think that McLean is able to give you a really good start here and allow the Mets to be able to get the job done, who have been averaging 5.2 runs per game going into Monday without Juan Soto. I think that that's going to regress a little bit, but hey, Carson Bench, AJ Ewan, Jacob Young, these are all guys in between about a 255 to 265. Bench has been able to give you about 13 home runs. You've been able to get a double-figure amount of homers out of Bo Bichette, who's hitting at 265. Marcus Semien has actually given you 14 home runs. Problem is, he's giving you a 275 on base. And Jorge Polanco about as useful as a poopy-flavored lollipop. But that said, I'm going to be one take shot on the under and plus 115 or better in on the Mets on the money line. 907, 908 on the card. It is the Phillies, and they are going to be on the road facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals as Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for the Cards, and Cadez First Sanchez goes for the Phillies. Total on scheme is between 8 to 8.5 on the 8. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 on the 8.5. Under is minus 115 to minus 120. The over is between even to minus 105, minus 155 to a minus 171. That number on the Phillies. And between plus 138 to plus 147 is that number on the Cardinals. And I'm going to be willing to side with the Cardinals here. I set them at a plus 142 for Christopher Sanchez, no doubt about it. He's had himself a really nice season, but he's got some of the most demonstrative home and road splits they're going to find in all baseball. Like, overall for the season, 265 ERA, 10.5 strikeouts, 2.1 walks per 9 innings, but take a look at what he's doing at home, and he is looking like Bob Gibson 2.0, 141 ERA, and his home starts 0.3 home runs allowed per 9 innings, closer to about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, and a 4.48 ERA away from home. So looking very mortal away from home, and Andre Palante is not a guy that's going to blow you away by any stretch of the imagination, but he's gone out there and he's been solid. 363 ERA, 372 fielding dependent, only about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 0.7 home runs, 2.7 walks per 9 innings, and gets to face off against the Philadelphia Phillies team that has been a bottom 2 team in the National League in terms of run creation when they've been away from home. They're a much better offense when they are at home. Kyle Schwarber was able to have a pair of home runs over the weekend after a bit of a drive spell, so he's up to 35 bombs, about a 360 or so on base. Bryce Harper, 25 bombs. He's been able to give you over a 350 on base as well, and then you've been able to have some good production on Brandon Marsh as well, a guy that's been able to give you 16 home runs, like the pickup of Luis Urias, but still need more out of some of these guys towards the bottom of the fold. The entire catcher spot has been an issue. Armando Sosa, so they've had some mixing and matching there. The outfield has been hit or miss. For the Cardinals, they are last in the National League in terms of run creation at home. Now you do have Alec Burleson, J.J. Weatherholt, who have both been able to give you about a 350 on base, 16 bombs for Weatherholt, 19 for Alec Burleson, and then Ivan Herrera over a 350 on base. Jordan Walker, your main boom guy with 23 home runs, 280 or so average. You need more on some of these guys at the bottom of the fold. Like, you've had some like a Nathan Church, Jimmy Krug's, Pedro Paz. They just have not been amazing. And this is a Cardinals team that is in the bottom 10 of the big leagues. In terms of opening rate, you just have not been able to get anything out of Matt Savancin. Ryan Stanek is looking better, but still a 4.57 ERA out of him. George Soriano's been a little bit shaky recently. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, the Caleb Killian pickup I just did not think was very good for them. I like Yohan Ron. He's been one of the better relievers in all of baseball. Killian, by the way, it looks like is going to be hitting the injury list. That's probably addition by subtraction for the Phillies, but Jose Alvarado continues to give you over a 5 ERA. Jonathan Boland's been solid. Ian Brooks Raley, sub 3.25 ERA, with both of these teams having really bad offensive splits in their respective locations. Would rather have the 8.5 under rather than the 8 over, but plus 143 or better. And on the Cardinals on the money line. 9-9, 9-10 on the card. It is the Rockies. They are going to be on the road facing off against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mitch Brett is on the bump for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Tomoyuki Sugano goes for the Rockies. And the Rockies, who find themselves as a underdog here between plus 142 to plus 150 and minus 160 to minus 175. Then around Arizona, 9 is the total in most spots. Over is at a minus 120, the under is at an even. Seeing it straight, 9.5. Under is minus 125, the over is plus 105. Semi-total 9.2. I would rather have a 9 over rather than a 9.5 to the under, mainly because, man, this is a Rockies bullpen that's in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You just don't have anyone out there whatsoever. You trade away Antonio Senzatella, Jay Nill, along with Juan Mejia. These are guys give you a 5+ ERA. Jimmy Harrigan has seen big time regression from a season ago. Brandon Bernardino has been okay, but I mean, that's about it. I recognize that this is not an Arizona Diamondbacks lineup that has really been mashing. They've been outside the top 10 in terms of run creation, and they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You do have Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte. He's done a nice job giving you 20+ home runs. He, along with Nolan Arenado, Corbin Carroll, your lone 3 guys on the roster, entering into this series with a double-figure amount of homers, all in between about a 240 to 250, so they've been relatively equals there for Carroll and Nolan Arenado. Both of these guys between about 14 to 15 home runs this season, but do have Gabriel Moreno, who's hitting darn near 300. Geraldo Perdomo's been able to give you about a 350 or so on base. So you do have guys moving the line. Ryan Waldschmidt, in a small sample size, I've been really liking what I've been seeing out of him. And then on the other end of things, you do have a Colorado Rockies team that does find themselves in the top 7 in terms of run creation. I recognize that obviously they're going to score a little bit more at Coors rather than away from home, but even away from home, Hunter Goodman has more home runs on the road than he does at home, 34 overall home runs this season. Then you've got a lot of 13s. Willie Castro, TJ Bromfield, Jake McCarthy, all with at least 13 home runs. And in the case of Bromfield, he's hitting at 295. McCarthy's hitting above 8,300 with 20 stolen bases. Mickey Moniak, 19 bombs and less than 300 at-bats. So, I mean, that's been relatively impressive. Troy Johnson, he's able at about a 280. And for Mitch Brett, it's been a small sample size, and I'm not necessarily feeling great about him either, as right now he's supplying a 3.90 ERA, but closer to a 5.51 fielding independent, 6.8 strikeouts, 5.9 walks per 9 innings. Has given up just 1 run in his last 2 starts, but also walked 7 in that time span as well. So he was dancing around a little bit of fire. And for Tomoyuki Sugano, this is a guy that pitches to a whole bunch of contact. 4.51 ERA, but a significantly higher fielding independent because he just doesn't get any sort of whiffs. 5.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, 5.39 fielding independent, 1.8 home runs, 2.2 walks per 9 innings. So the command is relatively solid, but I do think that the Diamondbacks are going to be able to get to him. With regards to this one, I set the money line at a minus 163 with the Diamondbacks. I'm much more interested in the run line. Right now, I'm seeing that right around about a plus 125. Would be willing to take a plus 124 or better with that Diamondbacks run line. And I set my total 9.2, so on the 9, I'm going to be in on the over. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. It is the Slam Diego Padres playing us to the Milwaukee Brewers as Kyle Harrison goes for the Brewers and Walker Buehler for the Padres. 7.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110. For Milwaukee, they are between minus 135 to minus 145, between plus 115 to a plus 125. That number on Slam Diego set the Brewers at a minus 138. So seeing that minus 135, that is calling my name. And when it comes to Kyle Harrison, he had that one brutal start out here in lovely Las Vegas where, I don't know if anyone could really pitch well out here in lovely Las Vegas consistently. Past that, he has been absolutely magnificent. 3 earned runs or fewer in every one of his starts over the last 45 days. 284 ERA, 290 fielding independent, 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up just 1 home run per 9 innings. And I will say, to the credit of the San Diego Padres, averaging over 5 runs per game ever since the All-Star break, they've been a top 6 offense with that regard. But I do think that Harrison is going to be able to cool them down. And For as good as the San Diego Padres bullpen is, the Brewers bullpen has been even better. For the Brewers, they are second in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA. The Padres, they are number 3. Now, Antonio Sensatella is starting to regress a little bit, but still, Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, D. Alternate Paul, all a sub 355 ERA, with Aaron Ashby right around about a 356 ERA. Chad Patrick has been a relatively good long guy for this team, so they've been able to do a great job there. And for the Brewers, they're a top 6 offense in terms of run creation, despite the fact that they don't really hit the deep ball. Bottom 7 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Jake Bauers is your main boom guy, 21 home runs, about a 375 on base, but you got so many guys that they just find a way to be able to reach base. Garrett Mitchell about a 355 on base. Bryce Durang a 365 on base with 16 stolen bases. David Hamilton really doesn't reach a ton in terms of getting on base, but still 21 stolen bases out of him. You've been able to get good production out of Cooper Pratt, who's been able to about a 275. Andrew Vaughn is hitting a 300. And then on the other end for the San Diego Padres, it has been a night and day difference for the team ever since the All-Star break, because you look overall for the season, Manny Machado is sitting at 212 with 23 home runs, but post All-Star break he's been much better. Fernando Tatis Jr. is up to 11 home runs, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that he has more home runs since the All-Star break than he did prior to the All-Star break. Jackson Merrill since the break has been hitting well above a 325. Ty France is hitting above 300 post All-Star break overall for the season. 17 home runs. Actually starting to get something out of Jake Cronenworth. Xander Bogaerts continues to be a wet match in a dark cave. Gavin Jeets has been a little bit rough as well, and I do think that the Brewers are going to be able to cool them down. And then obviously when it comes to the San Diego Padres bullpen, Mason Miller has just been absolutely incredible this year, but it's more than just him. You've got likes of a Bradley Rodriguez, Adrian Morejon, Yuki Matsui. These guys will be able to give you a sub 325 ERA. And for Walker Buehler, I do think that he's better than the 507 ERA would indicate. He's only getting about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Gives up about 1.2 to 1.3 home runs per 9. The walks per 9 rate is a little bit higher than that, but he is in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark, so it is a circumstance where I'm going to be in on the Brewers on the money line. I did set my money line price at a minus 138. With this total, I set mine at a 7.6. Just with the way that the Padres are hitting, I think that we've gone a little bit too low, so we'll take a 7 after the over. 913, 914 on the card. It is the Cleveland Guardians on the road against the Detroit Tigers. Tanner Bybee goes for the Guardians, and you've got Mr. Drew Anderson as the starter here for the Tigers, and Tigers are a slim favorite, anywhere between minus 120 to a minus 130. Meanwhile, plus 105 to a plus 112 is that number on Cleveland. 8.5 is the total, over and under, both at minus 110. And I'm going to be in on the under. I did set my total at 8.3 for the Detroit Tigers. Since June 1st, they have been a top 6 team in terms of bullpen ERA. I would think that with Drew Anderson, you're probably going to be getting a poo-poo platter of pitchers like Tyler Holden, who's been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Ty Madden has had a sub 275 ERA. Drew Anderson in his last start went 3 2/3 innings, kept it scoreless, and he's been able to round into okay form. 4.01 ERA. He's got a 380 fielding dependent, 10.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, and this is a Guardians team that still is not hitting. They do pick up Joe Adell. He's setting fire to the rain with 16 home runs, but still only right around about like a 300 or so with his on base. Nathaniel Lowe is a guy that I like. He'll be able to get on base for you a little bit. He's been able to provide a double-figure amount of homers, but Jose Ramirez has stopping himself this year. Ano Martinez, while he's been able to give you a little bit of power, he still has not been able to move the line himself. You've gotten absolutely nothing out of Rhys Hoskins as far this season. You do have Stephen Kwan up to about a 350 on base. Brian Rocchio along with Austin Hedges have surprisingly been able to move the line a little bit as well, but you do have a lot of roughness with that regard. And for the Detroit Tigers, you've had Dylan Dingler be able to supply over 23 home runs for this team. I would like to see a little bit more on base out of Spencer Torkelson. He's been giving you less than a 350 on base, but that's another guy that has been able to give you 20 plus bombs this far this season, so that is very helpful for this team. And then Gleyber Torres has been able to give you over 375 on base. Riley Green has been able to give you some bombs. He's given you over a 360 on base. Obviously, you've been able to get good production out of the more mix and match guys in this lineup as well. Aside from like a Matt Vierling, Zach McKinstry, these two guys have been a little bit rough, but ever since June 1st, this has been a top 8 team in terms of run creation. And when it comes to this Tigers bullpen, having all that depth is big, because for the Guardians, that is typically the forte of this team. With the Guardians, you've been able to have Cade Smith be one of the better closers in all baseball. He's been able to supply you with an ERA that is a sub 250. Hunter Gaddis has been a little bit shaky recently, but still 343 ERA. Colin Olderman, he had a little bit of a rough weekend, but he's still below 8.250 with his ERA. And Franco Ailman has been solid as well. Do think that you're going to be in for a little bit of a lower scoring game, but I just still have a tough time being able to trust in Tanner Bybee. 385 ERA with 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. Fielding independence more than a full half a point higher, because he's giving up about 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. Detroit, not necessarily the worst pitcher's ballpark, so I'm going to be in on the under semi-total at 8.3, and at this minus 120, I'm going to be in on the Tigers on the money line. 915, 916 on the card. It is the Seattle Mariners on the road facing off against the New York Yankees. Ryan Weathers looks weathers the storm for the Yankees, and Brian Wu says woohoo to another start. So on this game is 8, over and under both at -110, +115 to +120 is that number on the Seattle Mariners. -125 to a -140 is that number on the Yankees, and I am all aboard the Yankees here. I set this out at -159. It may sound demonstrative because for Brian Wu, he should be doing for a lot of positivity, but the problem for Brian Wu is that he's got some of the most wackadoo home and road splits I've ever seen in my life. Like, you look at the overall season numbers for Brian Wu. Right now, he's flying a 4.31 ERA, 9 strikeouts, 1.9 walks per 9 innings with 0.9 bombs per 9. So the 320 fielding dependent, it points towards all sorts of positivity, and look at what he's doing in Seattle. And he has been great at home. At home, he's giving you a 196 ERA, 4 home runs at 61 and a third innings. Even on the road, 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. Not totally terrible, but 6.71 road ERA. Holy crud. And then when it comes to Ryan Weathers, he has rounded into great form. 0 or 1 runs allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts. 379 ERA, 365 fielding dependent. He's getting 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has been burnt a little bit by the deep ball, giving up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. And what he has been at home, he has been giving up a little bit more hard contact as at home. That goes up to closer to about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. But the Mariners enter in the series dead last in the big leagues in terms of run creation. Cal Raleigh is hitting below a $1.75. That is a massive issue for this team. You've been able to have some of these guys like a Cole Young, Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez, even throwing their Luke Raley between about 15, 18 home runs. I recognize that Raley is dealing with a little bit of injury, and Dom Canzone up to about 18 bombs as well. Arozarena, to his credit, right around about a 375 or so on base, but you haven't gotten a lot out of Cole Emerson as well. Now for the Yankees, last 38 games, they're averaging about 3.4 runs per game. They are really missing Aaron Judge. Ben Rice has still been solid, 32 home runs. He's supplying an on-base percentage, hovering right around about a 350. Trent Grisham, he had a nice weekend series, but still, he's been giving you only about a 300 on base. Jazz Chisholm does give you 17 home runs, but he's down below a 300 on base. Ryan McMahon, you've had a lot of guys that have been not necessarily providing. Now, George Lombard might be able to give you some upside, but the Yankees are just winning these games with their bullpen because you've got so many guys coming out of this bullpen that'll be able to supply a sub-3 ERA, likes of Paul Blackburn, Brent Hendrick. You've been having even Kervin Castro now giving you some good innings for this team. David Bennar, Fernando Cruz. You just go down the list. So much reliability there. And for the Seattle Mariners, Matt Brash and Cooper Criswell are still on the injury list. It is a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA, and after a rough start to the season, Andres Munoz has been significantly better for this team. You are starting to see a little bit of regression with more of these mix and match guys. So let's say Ferrera's up to about a 3.55 ERA. Still have been able to get good innings out of Edward Bizarro, though, but I do think that for the Yankees, they are going to be able to get to Woo a little bit. I do think that Luis Garcia and some of the other guys like Eloy Ramos that they brought in at the trade deadline do just enough to get you over. So my total at 8.3. I like the over for the Yankees. Set them at a -159. I don't trust in Brian Wu away from home. So in on the over and the Yankees here on the money line. 917, 918 on the card. The Red Sox are going to be on the road against the Blue Jays as Dylan Cease is going to be on the bum for the Jays, and Patrick Sandoval for the Red Sox. The Red Sox do find themselves as a underdog here between +123 to a +130, -140 to -155. That number on Toronto. 7.5 is the total. Under is -120. The over is even, and I'm willing to take a shot on the under. I set my total at a 7.3. Dylan Cease, it's just been so good this far this season. Ironically enough, he actually does have a little bit of higher ERA when he is at home rather than away from home, but still, he's been mowing them down with about 13 strikeouts per 9 innings. The ERA is at 2.28. The fielding depends at 2.20, 0.5 home runs, 13.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. And for Patrick Sandoval, making just his 6th start since the beginning of the 2025 campaign, but he's been plenty effective. 3.38 ERA, 4 fielding dependent. The 3.8 walks per 9 innings are a little bit of an issue, but he's been able to get quite a few strikeouts with 9+ punch-outs per 9, facing off against the Blue Jays team that's a bottom 3 team in all of baseball. In terms of run creation, they've been trying to mix and match and find anything. I mean, with Vlad Guerrero Jr. still stuck on 7 home runs this season, that's been relatively rough. You do have Nathan Lukes along with Guerrero, AC Sanchez in the neighborhood about a 262, 275, and then Ernie Clement continues to move the line, but the catcher spot with Brandon Valenzuela and don't call his name Alejandro Kirk has been inconsistent. Josh Smith, who they picked up, he's hitting less than a 230 with not a lot of power. And for the Red Sox, when they've been away from home this year, averaging over 4.6 runs per game, that's actually more than what they average at home. And you've got quite a few guys in that neighborhood about a 320 to a 330 on base. Caleb Durbin, Cedon Rafael, Weiler Abreu, and for Durbin, over the last 45 days, he's been hitting well above a 280. Nick Sogard has been able to give you over a 360 on base. Obviously, Wilson Contreras carrying the mail, over a 385 on base, 20+ home runs. But I mean, even Jaron Duran, who's been awful with his batting average, he's been able to give you a little bit of pop as well. Blue Jays bullpen overall has been relatively solid. They sort of piggybacked with having Jamison Taillon and Simeon Woods-Richardson yesterday, so that saves more of a guy like a Spencer Miles, who's been able to give you a sub-350 ERA, Tyler Rogers, Louis Varland. These guys have been able to give you a sub-225 ERA. Flip side for the Boston Red Sox, no doubt about it, Aroldis Chapman has been one of the best closers in all of baseball, but additionally, Eric Miller, Garrett Whitlock, Giovanni Moore, and Teron Guerrero, these are all guys who've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well, so I do think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. Just can't go against Dylan Cease in this spot, so I did set the Blue Jays on the money line at a minus 163. I'm willing to lay it in. Made my total 7.3, so I'm going to be in on the under as well. 919, 920 on the card. It is the Orioles, and they are going to be on the road facing off against the Minnesota Twins. As for the Twins, it is going to be Bailey Ober getting the start for them, and Brandon Young for Baltimore. Baltimore is a very slim underdog here, anywhere between minus 104 to a plus 105, minus 110 to a minus 120 for Minnesota. 9 to 9.5 is the total on the 9, over is minus 120. The under is even on the 9.5, under is minus 115, over is minus 105, and I do like the under. I did set my total here at an 8.7 for the Twins. Ever since Byron Buxton has been out of the fold, it's a small sample size, I'm not going to lie to you, of 11 games, but averaging just under 3.5 runs per game. He's really the guy that carries the mail for the team, and when it comes to the rest of these guys for the Minnesota Twins, you've been able to get good power out of Cody Clemens. He's been able to give this team 20 plus home runs. Brooks Lee has been able to give you 15 plus bombs, and you do have a few guys, Trevor Larnach, who have been able to give you a 275 on base. So I mean, some of these mix and match guys have been solid, but they're just not the same team without him. And for the Orioles, this has been a unit that, when they've been away from home, they've been a little bit hit or miss with their offense. They obviously traded away Adley Rutschman at the trade deadline, and you just need a little bit more average, I would say, out of so many of these guys, because you look at the guys at the bottom, like Kobe Mayo, Leody Taveras, Colton Cowser, Tyler O'Neill, they're only at 225 or lower, but even at the top, Gunnar Henderson, while he's got 18 home runs, and Mayo, I'll throw in there, he's got 15 as well, but Henderson, he's only hitting about a 215 with less than a 300 on base. They do trade away Taylor Ward, but Pete Alonso, 345 on base, he's up to 25 home runs, he's back to where you'd expect him to be. Samuel Basallo, he's out with injury, and when he's been out there, he's been solid, so that's been a little bit hit or miss, but Kirschen, Encarnacion, Strand, small sample size, I like what I'm seeing out of him, and for this Orioles team, top 7 team in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st, sub 350 bullpen ERA out of these guys. Yanier Cano, along with Uncle Rico Garcia, have been your two mainstays for this team. Give me a sub 3 ERA. All of a sudden, Josh Walker's be able to come on, be able to give you some okay innings. Albert Suarez is not a bad long guy, still does have an ERA hovering right around about a 4, but Andrew Kittredge, after a terrible start to the season, 367 ERA might not sound great, but I mean, after the start that he had to the season, he's actually been very solid for the team. And for the Minnesota Twins, they do continue to be a bullpen that is in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Now, they did pick up a guy like an AJ Minter at the trade deadline, so I do think that's going to be getting better moving forward. And Yandres Gomez in a Twins uniform, sub 350 ERA. Andrew Morris has been a little bit better. It's more of these guys that have been out there just absolutely floundering. Like, we're going to give you Travis Adams with a 550 ERA, Anthony Banda, guys like this that have really lit games on fire, but for the Orioles, I do think that Brandon Young, even though he doesn't give you a lot of swing and miss, 7.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, he's going to be able to do a solid job in this ordeal because he's been able to do a good job in terms of controlling the deep ball, giving up just 1 home run per 9 innings. Big reason why he's got an ERA right around about a 3.43. Meanwhile, for Bailey Ober, he's got an ERA that is a 4.45, career low, 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, allows the deep ball 1.4 home runs per 9. So at the Orioles at a minus 121. I like their money line, and I'm going to be in on the under, so I tell it at 8.7, 921, 922. The Rangers are going to be on the road facing off against the Angels as Ryan Johnson goes for the Halos and Cody Bradford for the Rangers. Rangers opening up as a favorite of minus 144 plus 122 on the Halos. 9.5 is the total. Under is minus 120. The over is even. Boy, something has got to give here. Ryan Johnson is just absolutely terrible. He's got a 7.17 ERA, 2.3 home runs, 4.4 walks allowed per 9 innings, but have an Angels lineup that going into yesterday in their first 20 games going out of the All-Star break, 2.55 runs per game. And many of those games involved the likes of Joe Adell and some of the other players that they traded away, so not great to say the least out of them. You still have Mike Trout and Zach Neto who have been able to give you 18 to 20 home runs apiece, so that's good. But, I mean, even with Trout, even though he's got a 380 on base, that's a 235 average. Zach Neto's hitting at 225. Nolan Junol's moving line. He's been able to give you about a 350 on base. That's been relatively solid, but I mean, Josh Lowe's hitting below the middle sign of 200. Jose Siri is starting to regress a little bit. Whenever Yohan Moncada's been out there, which he's been injured, and I think they got DFA'd, so now they're looking at Adam Frazier in that infield. I mean, both of those guys hitting at 205 or lower. Like, you just name off a wash-up scrub that nobody else wants. That's probably they're taking a shot. And like, they tried Jameer Candelario. earlier in the season, and Nick Madrigal. So, I mean, it's been absolutely wild what we've been seeing out there. And for the Rangers, this is a bottom 8 team in terms of run creation themselves. Now, Wyatt Langford has been able to give this team a little bit more stability, and they've been a bit more of an over team since the All-Star break, but Corey Seager's trying to round back into form, still hitting below the middle sign of a 200. I do think that there's some upside there. And then you do have guys that are finding a way on base, like Justin Folskew sitting at 255, Brandon Nimmo, Ezekiel Duran. They're hitting between about a 272, 275. Jock Peterson has been able to give you 20 bombs, and his on-base percentage has been relatively solid. Was not in the starting lineup yesterday, but I think they should be all good to go here. And for the Rangers, it has been a bullpen that has been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA ever since June 1st, but ironically enough for the Angels, they pick up Chase Silseth. That's big because Jacob Junis is on the injury list. Jacob Ladd, Tyler Alexander, they've been able to give you a sub-375 ERA. Having Jalen Beeks out of the fold due to injury has been rough, but Robbie Alstrom, after it took him a little bit of time to be able to get acclimated, he has been much better here recently over the last few weeks, so he's been able to give this team some good production in the bullpen. And the Angels, honestly have not been the world's worst bullpen ever since June 1st. They've been about a league average team in terms of bullpen ERA. They're now getting back the flamethrower and Ben Joyce, the likes of Jose Fermin, Sammy Natero, sub 350 ERA out of them. Taylor Cicado, don't really have a lot of faith in him, but he's been a little bit better recently. But I do think that Cody Bradford, even though it's just his second start since the beginning of the 2025 season, he'll be able to shut down an Angels team that can't hit anything right now. He had 4 1/3 innings scoreless in his first start when coming back. I think that he had 5 hits in that start, so he is a guy that's getting banged around a little bit. The swing and miss stuff may not be there, but what better way to be able to ramp back up than against the Angels? So I set the Rangers here at minus 154. I'm willing to take their money line. I like the under. Sub total at 8.9. 923, 924 on the card. It is the Rays. They're going to be on the road against the Athletics, as Mason Barnett is going to be on the bump for the Athletics. Nick Martinez goes for the Rays. And right now, the Rays, if you're looking at the run line, they're even money. On the money line, they're quite a bit more chalky at about a minus 160 to a minus 162, plus 135 to plus 140 for the Athletics. So it'll send the over and the under between minus 105 to a minus 115. And I'd be willing to go up to a minus 105 with this Rays run line. Did set it at a minus 106. There's just no trusting in the Athletics right now. Mason Barnett, he was okay at the AAA level. He's come up to the big leagues and he has very much struggled. 5.56 ERA, 2.1 home runs, 4.5 walks per 9 innings. And the bullpen since June 1st, entering into yesterday, 6.83 ERA. Hogan Harris has a sub 350 ERA. That's about the lone guy on the roster with a sub 385 ERA. Luis Medina is not giving you awful innings. His ERA is right around about maybe a 375 as well, so he might be the other guy, but Jose Suarez has not been good as a long guy. Elvis Alvarado is an ERA well above a 4. These mix and match old guys have just not been able to give you anything whatsoever. Like, man, this entire bullpen is untrustworthy. And on the flip side of things, for the Tampa Bay Rays, they're starting to round into a little bit of better form with their bullpen. They're more of a league average team in terms of bullpen ERA, but Kevin Kelly, Brian Baker, they've been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. As a matter of fact, sub 250 ERA. Garrett Clevenger, much better recently. He, Tyler Wells, Cam Boozer, they're giving you a sub 325 ERA. For the Rays, they should be able to put runs up on the board with Junior Caminero entering into the series with 33 bombs. He, Jonathan Aranda, Yandy Diaz, all with at least a 370 on base, and Diaz and Aranda, 15 home runs apiece. Cedric Mullins doesn't give you too much in terms of average. He's hitting for 13 home runs, but that's why you've got someone like a Nick Fortes hitting at 275. Chandler Simpson, 30 plus stolen bags. He's been able to about a 300 with Mullins. He and Taylor Walls, they've both been able to give you 18 stolen bases, so they do a nice job in terms of small balling you to death. And for the Athletics, they're right now dealing with the injuries to both Nick Kurtz and Shea Langolaires. Now, Tyler Soderstrom, ever since June 1st, he's been giving it darn near a 400 on base. He's up to 19 home runs. That's solid, but he's the only guy in the starting lineup from yesterday that entered in the series with more than 11 home runs. They are getting Zach Aloff off the injury list. He's hitting about a 275 with 11 bombs. Jonah Hyman's been able to give you a little bit of power as well. And then Donovan Walton moves the line, hitting about a 285. Jacob Wilson, he does a great job out there in the field. Needs to draw a few more walks, but he and Carlos Cortez both hitting above a 260. Runs are just flowing like wine out there in Sacramento. And Nick Martinez, while he's been able to post up a nice 265 ERA, less than 2 walks per 9 innings, he is only getting 5.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. So I think that you get a nice high-scoring expose, like the over semi-total 7.7. And with the Rays, I'm going to be willing to take that even money run line, set it at a minus 106. 925, 926 on the card. The Reds, yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're under the road facing off against the White Sox. Sean Burke is going to be going for the Southsiders, and you've got one Mr. Nick Lodolo going for the Reds. The Reds do find themselves as an underdog anywhere between plus 135 to a plus 143, seeing as low as a minus 150, as high as minus 166 on the White Sox. 8 is the total. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Seeing a few straight 8.5s. That under is minus 120. The over is even money. And if you're looking to lay around half right now with the White Sox, you're going to be finding that at a plus 135. I'm going to be keeping it a little bit more conservative, and I'm just going to be willing to take a shot here on the money line of the White Sox. I did set mine at a minus 152. As for Nick Lodolo, you do have to have quite a bit of question mark with him because he's had a few okay starts, but I mean, it's very clear he just hasn't been the same guy that he was in the past, and I do think that this is going to be able to lead you to an over. Somebody told that at 8.7, especially with the Reds being a bottom 8 team in terms of opening rate. TJ Antone, along with Brock and Roll Burke, they've been able to give you a sub 350 ERA, but I don't have any faith whatsoever in Emilio Pagan. It's been a rough season for him. More of these mix and match guys like a Chase Petty, who's been utilized a little bit as a starter. And for Lodolo, this is going to be his first start in quite literally 30 days. His last start was July 11th. 4.60 ERA, 5.08 fielding dependent, way down with his swing and miss stuff, 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. And then for Sean Burke, he has been pretty remarkable here for the White Sox as he's been able to give you a 3.08 ERA with about a 3.36 fielding dependent, 10.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. And low key, White Sox have been a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st. Now you still do have a few guys like a Jordan Hicks I really don't trust in. They got rid of Sir Anthony Dominguez, which I think that is a big time addition by subtraction, but I'm the likes of a Grant Taylor, Sean Newcomb, I've been able to give you a sub 3.25 ERA. They picked up a few pieces at the deadline as well to be able to fortify that bullpen as well. And then additionally for the White Sox, you just have a trio of guys in Colson Montgomery, Montaka Murakami, and Miguel Vargas are absolutely pounding the ball right now. All three of these guys have been able to give you at least 24 home runs this season. Now Montgomery only a 215 average and a 296 on base. Vargas more of a 235 average along with Murakami, but Murakami does give you an on-base percentage as hovering in the neighborhood about a 370, 343 for Vargas. And then Sam Antonacci, 365 on base. You've had Chase Meadroth give you a 350 on base. Tristan Peters is moving line. So really liking what I'm seeing on the offense stands a catcher spot. And on the flip side for the Reds, you've been able to have Sal Stewart give you well over 20 home runs this season. He's been able to do a very solid job there. As a matter of fact, up to 25 home runs in that neighborhood, about a 255 average. And then Ellie De La Cruz along JJ Bleday, 20 home runs apiece. Both give you above a 335-ish on base. For Bleday, only hitting a 225 with regards to batting average, but does a better job moving line. But it's a bomb of full. These guys like a TJ Friedel, Matt McClain, even Eugenio Suarez, even though he's not at the bottom of the lineup. Brian Hayes, these are all guys hitting a 215 or lower. That's been a bit of an issue. Edwin Arroyo sometimes has been a mix and match guy, really doesn't give you a lot of power. And with the White Sox, I do think that they blow away the Reds here. Don't necessarily want the run line here because you just don't know if Lodolo is going to be in a little bit of better form, but I do like the over. Did set my total at 8.7, and for the White Sox, I'm going to be willing to take their money line. Did set it at a minus 152, 927, 928 on the card. It is the Astros. They are going to be on the road facing off against the San Francisco Giants. We do know that Hunter Brown going to be going for the Astros, and right now, it's old to be determined. Going for San Francisco, the lone money line price I'm seeing right now is with the Astros being minus $2, plus 168 on the Giants, and a total of 8. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And if you're looking to lay run half right now with the Astros, you're going to be finding that at a minus 113, and I would be willing to go up to a minus 109. So this is going to depend upon what we get when we get just more numbers out there in general, because plus 173 or better actually does put me in on the Giants money line. Like I said, minus 108 or better, I'd be willing to lay the run line here of the Astros. For Hunter Brown, I just can't go any further with him because the command is all over the place. Brown has always been a relatively good swing and miss guy. He's back above 9 strikeouts per 9 innings this season, and it does feel like he's starting to find his groove a little bit more. 3 earned runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 3 starts, but still, the walks issues have very much been there all season long. 4.9 walks per 9 innings, 353 ERA compared to a 433 fielding dependent, and this should be Carson Weisenhunt going for the Giants. Honestly, if it's not Weisenhunt, it's probably a little bit of an upgrade for them because he has been absolutely awful in his cups of coffee at the big league level. For Weisenhunt, he overall for the season, and I recognize, again, small sample size this year of 5 appearances, but 7.25 ERA, 5.64 fielding dependent with 6 walks per 9 innings last year in his 5 appearances, 2.3 home runs, 4.6 walks per 9 innings with a 5 ERA. So either way, you're looking at something that's not great. Now for the Giants, it's still a relatively solid bullpen with having Keaton Wynn being able to give you a sub 350 ERA. JT Brubaker has been able to do a solid job as well, but I mean with Blake Tidwell going yesterday, you weren't able to necessarily get the world's greatest length there. So some of these guys are spent in the back half of the bullpen with Carson Seymour, Revier, St. Martin. It is not great to say the least, and for the Astros. Top 4 team in terms of bullpen ERA since June 1st. Josh Hader has made all the difference in the world for the team. Steven Okert, Bennett Sosa, sub 350 ERAs. Brian King is up to about a 383 ERA, and for Aniel De Los Santos, it still has not been a great season, but he's been a little bit better recently for the bunch. For the Astros, you obviously have Yordan Alvarez, who's been amazing, 35 home runs, and he's providing a 435 on base. But then, additionally, Isaac Paredes, Cam Smith, they're both up to 15 home runs now. Smith, along with so many of these mix and match outfielders, Bryce Matthews, Jake Myers when he's been out there, Joey Looper Fido, Lamont Wade Jr. So many of these guys hitting at 225 or lower. It's rough. Taylor Trammell's been able to give you a little bit more, but still not necessarily feeling great about that. But Jose Altuve seems to be rounding into a little bit of better form. Christian Walker gives you 22 plus home runs. And for the Giants, this has been a little bit of an improved team with regards to their plate approach. You got Rafael Devers now up to 24 home runs and closer to about a 320 on base. No on base whatsoever. Willie Adames at a 281, but hey, 19 home runs is 19 home runs. Casey Schmidt, he's been able to give you about a 270 with 21 home runs. Unfortunately, he's still on the injury list, and who knows if he's going to be back this season, but Bryce Eldridge has picked it up in the meantime with about a 343 on base. So I've been able to have Jungle Lee hit about a 300. That's big because you lose at the trade deadline. Luis Arias, who's always good in terms of being able to get on base. They need Victor Barracoto back. He's been dealing with a little bit of injury, but Daniel Susic at the catcher spot has been solid as well. So plus 173 or better, we'll be looking at the Giants on the money line. If we could get a minus 108 or better, looking at the Astros on the run line, that'll be determined in the AM. And then I did set a total of an 8.3. Right now I'm seeing that 8 out there. We'll be willing to take that to the over as long as we can get an 8 or less in on the over, 8.5 or higher to the under. And then we wrap things up with 9:29, 9:30 on the card. The Royals are going to be on the road against the Dodgers as Blake Snell goes for the Dodgers and Michael Wacha. And if he has a bad start, it's a dying Pac-Man voice of Michael Wacha. Goes for the Royals. Royals are plus 220 to plus 230 underdogs, minus 260 to minus 275. That number on the Dodgers. So on this game, it's 8 the over and the under, both at minus 110. And give me the Royals. I'm going to be in on their money line. Set this at a plus 219 personally. You just don't know what Blake Snell is going to be able to give you. Like, I wish I could put it any other way, but he made one start at the big league level like 2 months ago, and when he made that start, he gave up 5 runs, 4 of which were earned in 3 innings. He had absolutely no command whatsoever. Like, that's rough to say the least. And I mean, he's done a few minor league rehab starts to be able to try to get acclimated, but hasn't really lent a lot of length in any of them. Like, he's made 7 overall minor league rehab starts this season with 19 2/3 innings. Like, the command has been a little bit better. The swing and miss stuff seems to be back as well, but have to have massive question marks with what you're going to be able to get out of him moving forward. And I mean, for the Dodgers, it's been a solid bullpen this year, but I mean, they're dealing with a lot of injuries with having Brock and Roll Stewart currently on the injured list. Edwin Diaz, who has come off the injured list, has not been great since he has been able to do so. Now Alex Vesia, Jack Dreher, Tanner Scott. These are guys giving you a sub 350 ERA. I like what I'm seeing out of Edgar Enriquez as well, but still do have a few question marks there, especially with Blake Treinen being on the fold. And the Royals are just all sorts of question marks with regards to their bullpen. They're second worst in terms of bullpen ERA in all of baseball. I mean, they had to utilize him as a starter, but Daniel Lynch has been solid out of the bullpen. He and Nate Pearson, a sub 350 ERA, but then you've got the likes of Alex Lang, Lucas Ursic, Steven Cruz, all supplying well above a 4 ERA. Beck Way actually looked like he had a little bit of promise. He lands on the injury list as well. Jose Quas is now seeing some innings, so not a place where you want to be. And for the Royals, this has been a team that's been averaging only about 3.6 to 3.7 runs per game away from home. They've been better recently, though, as Jack Caglione up to about a 265 average. He's been able to supply this team with 20 home runs, and you no doubt need Salvador Perez to be able to give you better than a 262 on base. But hey, for Salvador Perez, post All-Star break, he's already got 5 home runs. He's been hitting about a 250 since the break. Michael Massey has been able about a 270. They pick up Josh Rojas. I believe that there's still a little bit in his bat. Tyler Tolbert overall for the season, hitting above 300. In a small sample size, when you have Vinny Pascantino out there, he's been able to move line a little bit. Obviously, he's been all sorts of banged up, but for Michael Wacha, 343 ERA, closer to 405 fielding, depending because he's not going to get a lot of strikeouts, only about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but keeps the ball in the yard, 1.1 home runs, 2.6 walks per 9 innings. It is a Dodgers team that is averaging closer to about 4.4 to 4.5 runs per game at home, north of 5.5 runs per game away from home. So Shohei Ohtani has been incredible. He might be returning to pitching, by the way, for those looking at the MVP market. He's been able to supply the team with 26 home runs, right around about a 400 base. And then obviously Max Muncy does a good job moving the line, 340 on base with 22 home runs. Andy Paz, 19 home runs. Freddie Freeman sitting above a 300. Miguel Rojas, he's not going to give you power, but he's going to be able to move the line. I do think that you're going to get some scoring in this game. Like the over sub, I told it at 8.8 and plus 220 or higher. I'm in on the Royals on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show. Now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks thanks to our guy, Rob Donaldson, who does such great work over at Underdog Fantasy. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways to offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. And keep in mind, Larry Sam, name does not matter. So, per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. Write a 5-star review. I'm with you guys every single day, giving you guys picks and analysis on every game, every day. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.